The Ravens enter their Week 5 matchup against the visiting Houston Texans, beaten up, demoralized, and honestly looking like a team that could find itself struggling in most, if not all, remaining games this season. I will admit that despite my attempts to be objective and look at each game beforehand with a level-headed mindset, I'm usually a glass-half-full kind of guy. But after all the injuries and how the team fell apart last week, even I find myself struggling to maintain my usual optimism. But before we all lose hope and throw our hands in the air shouting that the season is doomed, there are a few silver linings we can look forward to in this Week 5 game and possibly in the weeks to come. Before we get started though, if you guys still enjoy this content despite how the season has started, give the video a like and subscribe if you're new. Your support is really appreciated. Also, comment down below something you are excited for in this week's matchup, and let's get to it. Welcome in everyone, this is Jordan with Ravens Flash Report, and as we have done for the past few weeks, we're going to start this video off by taking a look at this Texans team and discussing not only how they've played through 4 weeks, but what problems they could give the Ravens on Sunday. Let's start with them as a team, and the good news, bad news is that while their defense has held their opponents to the fewest points allowed in the entire league, allowing on average just 12.8 points per game, their offense has yet to find a consistent foothold, ranking 29th in the league in points scored, averaging just 16 points per game. Now, I know what some of you Ravens fans may be thinking right now. The Chiefs' offense wasn't supposed to be good either, and look what they did to us. And we'll get to that a bit later. For now, though, let's see what the Texans' offensive and defensive units have been able to accomplish through the first quarter of the season. From a yards and points perspective, they are at opposite ends of their respective spectrums, and that trend pretty much continues in both their passing stats and rushing stats. The offense is ranked 23rd and 27th in passing yards and passing touchdowns, while the defense is 7th and 2nd in yards allowed and receiving touchdowns scored. The offense is again 23rd in rushing yards, but 22nd in rushing touchdowns scored with 2. The defense is 12th in rushing yards allowed and 16th in rushing touchdowns allowed with 4 so far. The offense and defense also hover around the same amount of rushing yards gained and allowed per attempt, and are ranked similarly there as well. And lastly, I'll mention that the Texans don't gain much yardage per drive on offense, but their defense allows even fewer by opponents, ranking 23rd and 9th respectively. Oddly enough though, the Texans' offense, while ranked 31st in third down success rate, converting only 14 of their 48 attempts, has done a very good job at converting on fourth downs, succeeding 5 of the 6 times they've gone for it. They also struggle to score in the red zone, which isn't a huge surprise, but what is a surprise is that their defense also struggles to stop opponents from scoring in the red zone. That's something to note right there. CJ Stroud has struggled in most games this season, but last week turned in his best performance in the team's first win of the year, beating the Titans 26-0. Stroud had not only the most passing yards in this game, but also his highest completion percentage so far, completing 22 of 28, or 78.6%. This was also his first game of the season throwing for 2 touchdowns with no turnovers, and he had a passer rating of 125.1, which is his highest since his rookie season in 2023. Now, was this beatdown by the Texans the result of playing at home against a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward, or is the team simply starting to get themselves together after a slow start to the season? It's hard to say, but from an offensive perspective, it was a full team effort with contributions from almost everyone. Nico Collins led the team with 79 receiving yards, Jaden Higgins caught his only target, but it was for 24 yards in his first touchdown of the season, and running back Woody Marks had a big day with 69 yards and a touchdown on the ground, as well as 50 yards through the air on 4 receptions, and added another touchdown. The defense also showed up. I mean, obviously, they shut the Titans out, but they were aggressive all game. Not only did Derek Stingley pick off Ward, but the whole defense was pressuring Ward all game. Danielle Hunter recorded 2 sacks, but 4 other players also landed quarterback hits on Ward, and as a team, they recorded 6 total tackles for loss. Overall, this game feels like a whole team effort, and if they bring that same level of energy and effort to Baltimore on Sunday, I'm not entirely convinced the Ravens will be able to match it. The issue that the Ravens currently face, they come from several different outlets, and while some are in their control, such as coaching decisions and player execution, others are out of their control, such as injuries. In the most recent game, 5 of our 11 defensive starters did not start the game, but by the end of it, we had lost 2 more of them to injury. On top of Matabike, Washington, Jones, Van Noy, Ricard, Alexander, Humphrey, and Smith, we can now add Ronnie Stanley and Lamar Jackson to the list of players that have been injured this season. I bring all this up because it's now time to take a look at what our realistic expectations should be for this team going into this matchup, and potentially several more games over the next few weeks. To put it bluntly, I don't have much faith in Cooper Rush in general, but behind an offensive line that was already bad and is now missing its starting left tackle, I have even less faith. That being said, I do think this will force the Ravens into some uncomfortable territory in terms of scheme and play calling, which may not look pretty, but may prompt growth that would otherwise be unknown if we had our first choice all the time. If Rush is in there at quarterback, I would expect the Ravens to run the ball more than they have over the last 2 weeks, and that means that Derrick Henry gets more carries, or they do the smart thing and activate Keaton Mitchell for this game instead of Rasheen Ali, and let Mitchell prove that he's the perfect match to pair with Henry. If they do want Rush to sling the ball a bit more, I would assume that they would not only shorten the field from a depth of route perspective, but also give Rush more quick throw options or hot routes to dump down to. With how the offensive line has looked in pass protection so far this season, I don't think we want Rush to try and wait for deep routes to develop on every drop back. Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks at avoiding sacks, escaping pressures, and making throws outside the pocket by extending plays with his legs, and I'm sure the Ravens coaching staff take that into account when they draw up their passing concepts. But in my opinion, they take that element of this game to excess, and have become entirely too reliant on it as a constant part of their offense. I've spoken many times about Lamar's agility and his incredible spatial awareness making his offensive line look better than it actually is, and this year the front office's reliance on Lamar's ability to make a below-average line effective has reached beyond even his limits, and now he's paid the price for their over-reliance. With players like Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson on the opposing defense, I expect Cooper Rush will be given options of shorter routes and quicker developing routes to run in this offense, and if it's effective, my hope is that the coaching staff realizes that they can do this with Lamar Jackson too. Yes, of course Lamar has developed an improved connection on deep passes with guys like Bateman and Walker, but he and this offense can benefit from the inclusion of combining that with quicker developing routes and underneath routes. It sometimes feels like the coaches struggle to keep more than 1 or 2 pass catchers really involved in a game, and this is another way that they can improve upon that. You can still take your 4 or 5 deep shots to Bateman and Walker, but also throw in 5 or 6 quick throws outside to Andrews, Hopkins, or Zay. You could even get really crazy and run a screenplay to Henry or Hill 2 to 3 times a game on a first or second down. No one says you can only do that when it's 3rd and 15. The underutilization of the possible route combinations open to the Ravens' passing game in this offense, considering the abilities of the skill position players on this roster, is almost criminal. If this offense is even remotely effective this Sunday, considering their current issues, and quick throws are a part of that success, I will be beyond irate if they simply abandon their usage once Lamar comes back. When it comes to my expectations for the Ravens' defense this upcoming Sunday, I have none in the usual sense. Do I believe that Zach Orr has done a good job with this year's unit? No. But I also think that it would be disingenuous to suggest that every failure lands squarely on his shoulders when considering all of the injuries that we're dealing with. I learned from last week's game that just because we're facing an offense that has underperformed does not mean that they will underperform against us. I think it'll be a tough showing against the run game again, even if Travis Jones plays, beside Jenkins, who did a pretty good job last week. In the passing game, I worry about what Nico Collins can do with Marlon out, even if it hasn't been his best year yet, if we're honest. And on top of that, we don't even know if Wiggins or Alexander will play, and while I'm impressed with Awuzie so far this season, as well as TJ Tampa's development, which has been solid, I don't like the idea of those two being our starting outside corners. But who knows? The football gods are fickle, and momentum is a real force in this league, so if we can hang around score-wise and capitalize on a late-game turnover, we may be surprised. And for me, it would be a surprise. Now, as far as whether or not Lamar plays in this game, at this time, we don't know. It's being reported that his availability is up in the air and that he might be able to go on Sunday. If it were up to me, though, I would sit him out, and there's a number of reasons why. The first is that Lamar Jackson is your star MVP quarterback and a future Hall of Famer. You do not risk the long-term health and ability of your best player and the face of your franchise behind an underperforming and now injured offensive line to compete with a 1-3 record. The second is that even with Lamar playing, I'm not so sure we win this game after watching what happened last week against the Chiefs. Our defense has not been great this season, but despite somewhat underperforming, losing Roquan Smith and Marlon Humphrey, it doesn't improve the unit. There is little sense in risking more potential harm to Lamar's hamstring in a game that may not even be a clear-cut win for Baltimore in the first place. The third reason is one that I stated before. If starting Cooper Rush forces the coaching staff to adapt its play calling to account for Rush's lack of mobility when compared to Lamar's, and that helps them realize that Lamar could also benefit from quicker developing routes due to poor offensive line play and protection, it'll be a short-term loss but a long-term gain. And the fourth and final reason is along the same lines as the last one actually in terms of short-term loss but potential long-term gain, and that's John Harbaugh's tenure as head coach. We know from player interviews that John would have been fired after the 2018 season if not for the emergence of Lamar Jackson. And at this point, if John needs Lamar to win more than Lamar needs John, it may be best to let John's lack of capability show instead of allowing Lamar to let the status quo continue as it has. As far as offensive and defensive breakout performers, I'll keep it brief this week. For offense, I'm doubling down on my pick from last week and praying that they let Derrick Henry run all over this Texans defense and control the pace and time of possession in this game. For the defense, I'm going back to Mike Green in the hopes that he can use his athleticism and bend to take advantage of the Texans' equally poor offensive line in front of CJ Stroud. For my final score prediction, and I hope I'm wrong about this, I can't confidently say that the Ravens come out on top in this one, given what we've seen over the past 2 weeks. I hope for growth from this team going forward, but I have the Texans winning 24-20 in Baltimore this Sunday. Despite the rather negative ending to this video, I hope you guys enjoyed some of it. If you did, give it a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and comment down below how you think the Ravens will do in this week's game. As always, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe out there, and go Ravens.